5 years ago in Tartu, Estonia, I walked into this neighborhood bar for the first time, and at the doorway, looked around, took it all in, and said out loud, "I think I'm home." I was there every night for the next 2 weeks before returning to Texas and have gone back 6 times since, becoming part of a cast of characters in a scene that on a given night can look something like this. Working behind the bar is Elena, who speaks basically all the languages and who is wise and kind. She's working with Revo, a tall, lanky guy who is a street artist with a handlebar mustache. Soon, one of them will be relieved by Simone, the Italian who manages the bar, who will greet everyone by name with a ciao and a hug that will squeeze life right into them. Standing near the wood-fired heater is Funky, a purple-haired salesperson for the local brewery who is passionate and everything her name suggests. The bar forms a 90-degree angle, and Hendrik is sitting quietly at one end, drawing intricate figures into his notebook, while at the apex, Ott, a star teacher at the elite high school, is debriefing his day with his friend Marge. She manages a toy museum. I'm down from them waiting for my friend Wick, a college student who drinks weird things like grain coffee and non-alcoholic beer. There are socialists and capitalists and anarchists and those who miss what they call the good old days of an American president named Donald Trump. There are young and old and middle-aged people and straight and queer people representing all the letters. There are sober drunks sipping on hot tea, and there are those who will stop in for one drink and 15 minutes of respite from caring for their ailing parents. And there are those for whom the bartenders know to take a little extra time before pouring them another drink. Inevitably in this scene, someone's going to ask me if I know Jerry from Tennessee. Jerry visits Tartu during the summers. I'm usually there during the holidays, earning him the nickname, the Summer Craig, and me, the Winter Jerry. The other inevitable question I'll likely get asked is one you may be asking yourself. What is it with you and Tartu, Estonia, and this bar? And for a long time, I wish they would let me get away with, I just love it here. But for such a small, remote, obscure place on the planet, the answer requires more history and detail. And the history and detail that are impossible to avoid is this. I first discovered Tartu because I believed the Estonian people were living in darkness and needed me to carry the light of God into their sad existence. In 1996, I was an evangelical Christian college student selected to travel to Estonia to be a summer missionary. I knew little about Estonia, aside from having a vague notion that it was a former Soviet nation, and in my religious world, missionary work to those countries was very popular. I spent the summer in Tartu, a small city in southern Estonia, working with the Solemn Church, a congregation of incredible people who were emerging from a half-century of being marginalized for their faith by the Soviet system. I had 2 jobs at Solemn. In the early morning and afternoon, I worked with the construction crew at the new Solemn Church building, and in the midday, about a mile away, I taught English classes at the old Solemn Prayer House. And in my own time, I looked for what I called divine appointments, which I believed were moments that God would arrange for me to tell people who would listen that they were sinners going to hell unless they gave their lives to Jesus like I had. I was a delight. You would have loved me. I enjoyed teaching English and tolerated construction, and though it gave me anxiety, I had convinced myself that telling people they were sinners was holy work. But what I really loved that summer, what gave me great meaning and peace, were the quiet daily walks I took between that construction site and that old prayer house. Walks that took me down the narrow streets and alleyways of the Karlova neighborhood, with its wood-slatted century-old houses with chipped paint and ancient doors, hidden backyard gardens, and cats peering out the window. I ended that summer young, energetic, idealistic, and with the belief that I was God's ambassador, carrying light into dark places. But also, a deep love for the city of Tartu had overtaken me, and I vowed one day to return. I moved into adulthood. I found community. I passed through jobs and seasons of joy and sadness and hope and loss, and each new season transformed me into newer versions of myself. And then in 2015, life handed me an opportunity to return to Tartu, not to teach or to build or to proselytize, but to rest and to read and to write and to pray. All, by the way, while staying in a guest room provided by the Solemn Church in that now complete building. But like so many years before, what I spent most of my time doing that summer was walking around the Karlova neighborhood, discovering all the beautiful ways that it had transformed into newer versions of itself, while still retaining its mystery and unique spirit. Once again, I vowed to return. Shortly after I left that summer, Simone, the Italian I mentioned before, opened a bar. Simone, from the Bari region of Italy, opened a bar in the Karlova neighborhood of Tartu. Naturally, it would be called Barlova. Barlova became, in a very real way, the living room of the Karlova neighborhood, a place where people could come and be quiet and reserved like an Estonian, loud and boisterous like an American, or anything in between. It was the warmth of that living room that I walked into from the bitter Estonian cold that night 5 years ago when I declared, I think I'm home. It has been in the warmth of that living room that I have come to know newer, more expansive versions of the world and of myself. And I don't gloss over my Tartu origin story anymore, and here's why. I was at the bar one night visiting with Marilise, an acquaintance, who asked me that once dreaded question, why this place? I responded with my usual hesitation, and I led with the words, I'm ashamed to say, and then I told the story that I just told you. And I noticed on her a look of confusion, one I'd seen on others before, but one that she gave voice to by asking, why are you ashamed? The question stopped me in my tracks, not because I didn't have an answer. I did. I was ashamed for having once reduced the Estonian people to nothing more than potential converts to my religion. But what struck me was that in a moment that I feared being pushed away for this, Marilise leaned in with trust and curiosity. And I realized in that moment this truth that had been in front of me all these years returning to Estonia. Estonians, among the least religious people in the world, don't have a positive view of religious faith and those like me who practice it. But what's also true, they don't have a negative view of religious faith and those who practice it either. What they have instead, the gift that Marilise extended to me, is the gift of curiosity. And over the course of countless divine appointments at Barlova, that gift of curiosity has shined light into the dark places of my life, as the Barlovans have become missionaries of joy to this Christian from Texas. I believe we all need a public living room where we can be our full selves with others, where we can sit alone in a crowd of people or sing into the silence, where we can share our stories with each other, where we can hold mirrors of truth up to each other. Whether that place is in a church across the street or in a bar on the other side of the world, I hope you have yours. And if you ever find yourself on the corner of Tahe and Eha streets while walking around the enchanting Karlova neighborhood of Tartu, Estonia, stop into Barlova. Have the Alexander beer or a shot of Anatolin. Tell them Craig sent you and that I'll be home soon.